and it's all in the past. I'm dwelling on the thoughts I cannot say to you. If I don't say the words, then maybe it's not true. And it feels alright when they come and say to you.
Good evening, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wright. That is the three Amigos, the perfect start to your Newcastle United weekend. And it's a big welcome to Steve Hasty and Mitch and George. Great to see you guys still together. You're live from a kitchen at a party.
Chelsea Rob's kitchen.
Chelsea
where
Rob's
you've seen us here before, but I managed to commandeer his rather widescreen desktop and his webcam, so I'm on the big screen so you can see the whole bloody kitchen. So apologies whilst everybody filters in and out. There's a house full of Filipinos and they'll keep the place empty. So it's quite amusing, to be fair.
Great stuff. Great to see you, lads. As always, plenty to talk about. Apologies to Keith Patterson fans. He can't make it tonight. He's out early tonight, and he didn't want to eat on the screen, he said, because some people don't like him having his tea on screen. So, listen, we're going to start with a Newcastle United football kit issue, which I think we've done on this show before. See, the second kit is out, says Chippers. And again, we are getting people having a go about it. Yet now it is being said about Liverpool's second kit, which is also green and white. A few other people asking what we think of it. Tom Dixon asking what we think about the strip. So, for those of you who haven't seen it, there it is. That is our change strip for next season. First thoughts on that, Steve?
Well, I went into the club shop today and actually saw it. It was up there and there was quite a queue. I didn't buy one because I was in a hurry and I would have had to probably stand for about 45 or 50 minutes in the queue just to pay for the thing. £78 with the nice Champions League. So remember, we're in the Champions League, guys. So Champions League badge on, £78. It looked decent. A lot of people standing, as I say, in the queue wanting to buy it. It's different. It's striking. As you say, it's not the Liverpool strip that nobody wants to talk about. It's the green Newcastle strip that everybody wants to talk about. We've worn green before, as Spenny Mag told me earlier on today, and he sent us a photograph of Barry Venison and a variety of other footballers from back in the 90s wearing a Newcastle United away green strip. So people want to get their knickers in a twist, then fair enough. But at the end of the day, it's a strip that will be worn maybe 6, 7, 8 times next season. And it's not black and white stripes. It's green. It's got a nice trim on it. And it looks all right. If you want to get hung up on a kit, get hung up on a kit. If you want to buy it, buy it. If you don't like it, don't like it. Fair enough. That's fine with you. People who don't like it will either have a thing about green, or they'll have a thing about Saudi, or maybe just don't look right in green. That's up to them. I'm nonplussed, Steve. I think quite a few of us over the years have said on this show that we're nonplussed about what the strip looks like. We're more concerned about what we are like playing in it, and we've got that to look forward to. Whether it's the Champions League game, the League Cup game, an FA Cup game, or a Premiership League Cup game. So fair enough.
George, good evening. What's your views on this green strip? Then it's green strip again.
Yeah, well, I love it. There it is, and the likelihood is I'll buy one. And I don't know why we need to be shy about it. Why people are getting upset about it. Let's face it. We are being funded by connections to Saudi Arabia. If those connections want us to wear green, well, fine. I'm happy about that. I'm not unhappy about that. Because if it wasn't for those connections, we wouldn't be having the fun that we're having now. So I'm not shy about it at all. Quite the reverse, in fact. Steve's absolutely right. It's not the first time we've worn a green strip. I doubt it'll not be the last either. But as long as it's a quality strip, and I've seen the other picture, it's got the shorts and the socks on, and that looks, as a set, it looks very nice as well. So, I'm delighted. It looks very smart, and I wouldn't hesitate to wear it at all. In fact, as I say, I'm going to stop being shy about the fact that we've got a link with Saudi Arabia because of our own as well. So be it. I mean, it just beggars belief that people are still ranting on about this this far down the line when others are doing similar things, and in my opinion, somewhat worse, because at least we're being upfront about it. It's not through the back door. We're upfront and it's happening. So I like it. I'll definitely buy one, and I look forward to seeing the team in it this season.
Okay, Mitch, I often call you our strip connoisseur on this program.
Right.
You've got a vast array of strips, mate, which lots of people who watch NUFC matters are very jealous of and often want to mimic and copy. So give us your thoughts on the strip.
Look, it was inevitable that somewhere along the line, either our second or our third strip's always going to have an influence of the Saudi colours. They've made that very, very clear from the off. I've seen all sorts of nonsense. It seems to be rattling more cages than a bloody jailer in Strange Race today. It's just some of the stuff I've seen. Good God. People comparing the green on a colour chart to the Saudi strip's green and using the wrong Saudi strip, by the way. They've gone across that. That's not 90 anymore for this year. To me, that looks like a green strip that maybe has an influence in the patterns on it that could be palm tree-like. And so, you know, that's my interpretation of it. I might be a million miles out on that. It's green. Stu won't wear it, and that's not because it's something to do with Saudi. That's to do with Scottish football. So he won't wear it. There's one person who won't be wearing it. I like the look of it. I like the black and white trim on it as well. I think that's a nice little detail. I think sometimes details matter more. But everybody will be up in arms probably about the stitching on the badge, and everybody's looking for everything negative in Castori at the moment, which I kind of understand, but at the same time, it's like now we're going to nitpick at everything. It is what it is, and for me, I like it. I do like the black and white trim on it. I'm never a big fan of a round collar, but it is what it is. Let's see what the third strip is. What I would love them to do is come up with an absolute left field or a blockbuster third strip that'll just stop everybody talking about the away strip.
Can I put it out there, Mitch, that are you describing them as palm trees? Perhaps they're just angles that are paying some sort of tribute to the East Stand before it gets demolished and gets built into a beautiful new stand. And also, obviously, you've mentioned there the Pantone colours, but have you heard anything in Saudi about Al Nassr, Al Hilal, Al Ittihad, and Al Ahly coming out with a black and white third strip yet?
No, but wouldn't that be amusing?
It would, wouldn't it?
Tell you the one that could possibly do it might be Al Hilal, because there seems to be the most prized club of PIF. That's the one that while the other clubs seem to be scrambling to sign big names, Al Hilal are just sort of like doing their business in the background, and I suspect they'll end up with the better quality players at the end of the day. But that would be amusing. A black and white third kit for Al Hilal, that would be very amusing.
Yeah, we'll put it out there first on NUFC Matters and see how far that one goes.
Mark's asking if George drove a racing car to that kitchen.
Not yet.
Not yet. Yeah, he's had a good time out there, everybody, which is fantastic. Great to see you together.
The hotel I've had them in's been on the edge of the racing track in Motor City, and you can watch the activities on the track from the pool on the roof. So I had an afternoon on the roof watching people doing their driving experiences and tanking M3s into the Armco. The other day, it was quite funny.
I've got to be honest, I quite like the green strip. I mean, not because it's riling up other supporters of other clubs, and not because it's riling up the people who are against Saudi ownership. It's just because it's a nice strip, and I mean, I think it's actually something which looks stylish. It looks it looks. I'm a big fan of plain strips. I don't like all of this multicolored nonsense or cross-purposed stripes or whatever. And I quite like it. I think it's very simple. And I think George nailed it when he said ultimately we're a Saudi owned, Saudi owners are 80% shareholders. They can do the strip whatever color they want. Nobody else has an issue with anybody else playing in these kind of strips. And Newcastle have got a history of having green strips. It's as simple as that. It is simple. It is as simple as that. But sure, lots of people will have comments about it. Lots of people will have comments in the chat. So stick them over if you want to. Sooty was asking. No, was it Joe? I'm just trying to work it out. 2 seconds. Bear with us. Oh no, it was about Joelinton. Somebody saying, could he be a centre forward? There we go. Sooty, I've got his question now. Do you think with how Eddie has brought the best out of Joelinton, he could be more deadly as a striker? He initially came in and played that role, but we know he was dreadful. If he did come good in that position, that would give Howe more options up front. Plus, that money could be used to bolster another position if they were thinking of adding a third striker. Steve, not the first time it's been suggested that Joelinton perhaps becomes, a striker. We signed a midfielder in, a world-class midfielder, it has to be said, Italian captain. And, we are going to be top-heavy in there unless these players go out. If they retain them all, it's going to be an interesting conundrum for Eddie Howe to fix. Do you think you look at Joelinton maybe as a front man again?
No, I don't think he will. I think he knows Joelinton can play wide on the left, and I think he knows that he can play centre midfield as a bit of a destroyer and a bit like Sissoko played, isn't it? When we had him, where he could, win the ball in the midfield and plough forward that 30, 40 yards from a defensive to an attacking mode. And he does get, as we saw last season, does get on the end of things now. He has put the ball in the net on occasion, but no, I think Eddie. I think once you settle for a position, once Eddie settled for Joelinton and he saw him as something that other people didn't, and he saw his performances up front, I think that's one of the reasons why he bought Isak. I don't think he'll go back to try and play Joelinton down the middle. Or as a main striker or anything like that. I think there's more chance of him buying a third striker than there is playing Joelinton in that particular role. We've got a long, hard season to come. That's the way I'm looking at it. And I think you said there that we're top heavy in midfield slightly. I don't think we are. I think it's going to be horses for courses. I think it's given the management team that flexibility, the coaching staff, the flexibility to look at the opposition, to look at a style of football that they want to play on a particular given day, and to go out and send the team out in that particular mode, always looking for a win. So if push came to shove and we had injuries to Isak and Wilson and Gordon, we had no one to play up front, then you may be tempted. But for me, no, I think I'd rather see us bring another striker in before we ever consider Joelinton as a main striker.
Okay, George, what's your thoughts? Joelinton back up top?
No, I don't think so. And Eddie Howe's created something very special in Joelinton, and a good example of all the other members of our team and our squad. Good example of any youngsters thinking about going into football. Joelinton listened to his manager. He followed what he was told, and has turned out to be a world beater. Now, I don't see any reason to go backwards in that. In fact, people were talking last week about Anthony Gordon, for example. I think there's more likelihood of Anthony Gordon playing up front than there is of Joelinton himself. No, I think Joelinton's got a position that's given him an enormous international reputation, not just local reputation. And I can't see Eddie Howe risking that. Maybe if he was stuck and had to have a change in the match or something like that. But otherwise, no, I wouldn't expect to see Joelinton playing up front again. If nothing else, it'll do my blood pressure good, because when he was centre forward before, I used to go home on a Saturday night. My mother used to say to me, "That poor lad, you've been shouting at that lad on the field," because he used to drive me crackers. Steve knows
he's got the bruises to prove it.
I couldn't go back to that again. But no, I think all seriously, Eddie Howe's created a real, what the modern terminology is, a baller in Joelinton. And let's keep him that way. And make that the rock that our team's built on, and have a go at the others the way he did before. Because he's good at both ends. He wins tackles now and all this sort of thing. And he can manage to do 20, 30, 40-yard sprints, which he couldn't do when he was playing up front. So, no, I don't think Joelinton will go back up front.
Okay. Mitch, what about you?
Yeah, if it's not bust, don't fix it. He's already fixed it. What do we need to do? There's nothing else to fix. There's nothing else to fix. He's found his role. He's found his niche. Why disturb that? And he didn't look out of place playing that role in the Brazil's team, did he? And so, you know, that answers everything for me. There's no need to mess around with Big Joe again. He's found his calling. He's found his role. He's found his place. What they are going to do is bring players in to make them work that little bit harder to compete, to keep his place. And I think that's the way you get the best out of Joelinton, not by shoving him back up front.
Okay, here's a one from me then. We mentioned it.
Sorry. I've noticed on the comments, people have been asking about him not wearing any glasses. All I can say to you is the screen that we're on tonight is so big, I can actually read the strap on the bottom without my glasses.
Fantastic. There we go. They're also asking if you'd looked in Mitch's second draw.
No.
Good
Look,
lad.
All I'll say is I don't mind answering questions, but there's a limit I'll not go to. That's when the limit starts to embarrass me. So that's
Classic.
not going to happen.
That's very good.
What happens in Dubai stays in Dubai.
Absolutely.
Very good. I just want to say, well, I'll chuck in Anthony Gordon. I asked the question this week actually about Anthony Gordon potentially moving up front. Is that something? I mean, he's played in the under 21s as a centre forward, and you know he notched a goal against Israel. Some people making the point, of course, Steve. Well, it's only Israel under 21s, but you know, would you potentially look at Anthony Gordon and as a forward option?
Yeah, I think that's why Anthony Gordon's been bought. Actually, perfectly honest, not necessarily as the main striker, but certainly playing up top. You know, it's the formation that Eddie wants to play. I talked in previous shows about perhaps some games will play with one striker and five in the middle. You might go to three at the back occasionally. He'll play horses for courses in various competitions. But I think you know you look at what Eddie Howe's got and what Eddie Howe's put up with over the last. Or I'm saying put up with. That's not the right phrase to use. What he's put out in the last couple of seasons. You know, Almiron playing down one side, ASM playing down the other. Lads who can get to a byline, lads who can cross a ball. Gordon tends to play across the middle. From what little we've seen of him, I think. He said himself, it's down to his fitness. He said he wasn't fit when he came to the club. Not fit as in not fit enough to play the style of football in the way that Eddie Howe wants, the intensity. And that's obviously something the lad wants to build on and learn from. And has obviously worked on during the close season. And then when he's been with the under-21s, from Newcastle's point of view, that's going to be very, very beneficial. You know, again, Gordon's young enough. He's only 21, coming on 22, something like that. I think he's been bought for the future as well. And it's going, like I said previously, it's going to be a long season for Newcastle United, long season for the squad. And they're all going to play that part, Steve. Whether they're playing on the left, whether they're playing on the right, whether they're given a role down the middle for a particular game or part of a game. But he certainly hasn't gone out and bought Anthony Gordon as a left back or a right back. We know that for certain.
No, definitely not. George, Anthony Gordon would be a different option, I guess. I guess with the players that we've got so many who can be adaptable. We've mentioned that on the show before, but Anthony Gordon is a potential.
Well, very adaptable in my view. I mean, the little we've seen of him, we've seen enough to see that he can attack down the right, he can attack down the left, and go through the middle when the ball's there to go for. And the people have derided the fact that he scored against Israel under 21s. For me, a goal's a goal. If a goal scorer can hit the back of the net, I don't care if it's against Wall's End or anybody else, as long as they can hit the ball in the back of the net. So, no, and that versatility gives Eddie Howe something else to think about. You know, and long may it continue. I think every manager likes to have what I used to call now at my days a utility player. And Anthony Gordon could be ours. He could appear at any of the front five positions, in my opinion, but certainly could play alongside Wilson as well as other wings.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he's certainly got a finishing touch.
He's there. Yeah,
He did well. He did well. You know, he did very well in one season for Everton. I remember where he was played at the number 10. Do you know what I mean? So yeah, 100%. I think he could do it. Mitch, your thoughts on our friend Anthony Gordon?
The 2 games he started, I was able to catch both of them, and England and the 21s play this odd sort of 4-2-2-2 system that Emery plays at Villa. And it relies on energy and pressing, and it relies on mobility and movement and flexibility, which is, it's not too dissimilar to what Eddie Howe gets out of us in the formation he uses with us. And I have to say, Gordon looked bloody good with the freedom of the pitch. Particularly when he was interchanging out wide and then coming back in. And he played very well alongside Gibbs White, the lad I think was now at Forest at the minute. And the pair of them really did interchange well together, and I think he set Gordon's goal up as well. And Gordon should have had another goal purely from his movement and his flexibility and his energy. So I mean, based on what I've seen, do I think he can play up front? Yes, yeah, I do. In our system, would he be through the centre? No, I don't think so. I think he'd be one of the wide forward positions. But I think certainly it's not even a case of could he do a job there. I think he could make it one of those positions his own. I think we underestimate what we've bought. There was a lot of criticism about the money we've paid. That's not the lad's fault. He doesn't set the transfer fee. You know, sticking that on his shoulders really doesn't help anybody, because that's got nothing to do with him. We felt that we are getting value for money and investing in him. And from what I've seen playing for England in the 21s, he looked really very, very comfortable in that much more advanced role.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's an interesting concept. Eddie Howe's the man who gets paid, though, to make those decisions. And best of luck to him next season. Okay, as you know, on the Amigos, we always have lots to get through. And here is Tweet of the Week. If I had a post bag, it was bulging this week for Tweets of the Week. So apologies. Apologies to those who didn't, if we didn't get to your tweets. This one was sent back end of last week. Tweet of the Week contender Monday. Chelsea admit they will have to lower their expectations when it comes to transfer targets this summer. Instead of West Ham star Declan Rice, they can now afford his brother Muller. Really good at corners, though, apparently. Excellent. Boris Johnson comes in for a lot of criticism these days, and admittedly may have been the worst PM we've ever had, and a contemptuous, loathsome wanker to boot. But when he was in power, the weather was much nicer. No one went to work. You got served in a pub without having to go to the bar, and pub grub was half price. Bring him back, I say. Can it be the Viz letters? I don't agree with the sentiment. Due to political correctness, Dick Van Dyke has changed his name to... Can I be the one? He's nothing wrong with George's eyesight. The unexpected Nancy Poo stories, the unexpected bowel movement by crapping and peeing. Thanks, Dougie. And yes, I'll leave this for your imagination.
Yes, I best do.
There we go.
This big screen smashing, Steve.
I bet it is. I didn't want to read that out, and I've took it off quickly. Anyway, there we go. Dougie Morris, it's a good job it's an over 18s, this show. Unfriending the early years. And another one from Dougie. Nice fur coat. Thanks. It's my ex-husband.
Oh, God.
He's on a rave this week. Andy Hugh Johnson, you stick with your man and keep that hand in his face. One of those Kerry Everett hands. And Dougie, thanks for this one. Jim receives a note under the door and is intrigued, especially because it's the closet door. A lot of these flying around recently. Forsyth, who played for Nice to see you, Nice FC. Cheers, Ian. And here's Elsie waiting for Hastie's lookalikes. That's David Cook's dog. Every Friday, apparently, it sits like that, watching the show, waiting for the lookalikes.
Classic.
Oh, it is. Tweet of the week from Jimmy. You know what Jimmy's like. We sell used body parts.
That's weird.
Oh, my goodness.
A couple here from Jimmy Wilson. ADHD, highway to look a squirrel. And £10. Remember when the internet is down, you can rely on me. Somebody wrote that on a £10 note. Here's some dodgy light fitting. When your home improvement project doesn't turn out as planned.
Oh,
And Jimmy Moore again. Man United takeover live. Glazers won't sell club after delay. A Sheikh Jassim message sent. Sorry, Goldbridge and the rest of the Man United nation. You just got played. Enjoy your new owners. Hint: it's the same owners you had before. And Hart says cost of living crisis has gone mad. 105 million for rice.
Yeah.
And Diane Morgan was over the moon with her Netflix recommendation this week. She got sent this, our own program. Eric Morgan, of course. I love that. Was brilliant. Very good. And what is Jamie Lee Curtis yelling? Wrong answers only. Mark Wallace was quick in with Alouetta. Geordie Alouetta.
Very good, Mark. Very good.
Woke up, watched Grandstand, rode Candle in the Wind, went to London, bought Rolls Royce, Ringo Starr came for dinner. Diaries of Elton John, 1973. True diary entry, apparently. He comes in handy when you run out of cocktail sticks. Thanks to Zara for that one. And Mr. Anderson, well, we found one part of him. This was brilliant. Dougie sent this one. Popped into Keswick today. Look who I bumped into. Mr. Vicky's Sauces.
That's brilliant.
That's a great photo, mate. Thanks for sending that.
Still us up for bottom lip, doesn't he, after that testing that we did?
100%, mate. 100%. I'm going through my supply slowly, though, and there is new stuff to promote next week. This was brilliant as well. Elton John to bring a special guest to Glastonbury. Of course, it was Mad Dog. And my wife left her purse in a chair, and now it won't stop telling me to bring it. Han Solo. Very good. How embarrassing. I've been singing the wrong words for bloody ages, said Cy Gallagher. Guns N' Roses, welcome to the Arsenal. Hang it in the Louvre. Brilliant that. Bruno now wearing clothes designed by fans for fans. Fantastic. Great offer in Sainsbury's Sunderland. £2 for two for £2. Sainsbury's boiling the bag. Buttered piss flaps. $1.29. Quite what they are, I really don't know. It's your kids, Marty. Something has to be done about your kids, said Darren Dutton. Debbie Harry, of course, at Glastonbury. Roker Wright, Sunderland fan, I would presume, watching the Saudis, Qataris, and everything that's wrong with the Premier League at the minute just makes me more excited for the champ to start, to be honest. Championship, that means. Proper teams, proper fans, and obviously I want us to be at the very top. But unless a nation buys us, the sooner the Super League happens, the better. Some great stuff coming out of the Chutney Cheese Company. Fart starters. Pickled onions.
Chili.
Sports Direct bag found with £1 million worth of drugs in on the BBC News this week.
Wow.
Was it a $500,000 in one of the mugs?
I love this photo. I'm sure that's in the Felon, you know, because the guy still knocks around the Felon. But yeah, do you remember this guy used to come around pubs and clubs?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
The fish man.
pubs and clubs, that was it.
He stores by the buses.
You have to look closely on this one. Thanks to Michael for sharing it. Dress for sale. DM me or Rachel Prowse for details. Excuse my nan in the corner. She was boiling.
Yeah, don't look too closely as you say.
Not if you're having your tea.
Our Wi-Fi wasn't working last night, so I sat and chatted to the missus for a change. I'm surprised to hear she no longer works at Woolworths. Last couple, my plan, my budget.
Yeah, probably right, that Dougie. Yep, everybody's budget.
And from Ian Hull, all the way from sunny Benidorm, I told a joke on a Zoom meeting, but nobody laughed. Turns out I'm not remotely funny. Okay.
Oh, gosh. You're right.
One of those Star Wars ones, guys. Only Star Wars fans will see it.
Yeah, we can see it.
Very good. And Jimmy, smoked ET, anyone? Welcome to the South. That was mad.
That was, wasn't it?
Very, very, very like it. Top two, then. Oh, no, just like the Manic Street Preachers warned us. Lost children.
Very good.
And the winner this week of Tweet of the Week, Mom, why don't you add mushrooms to the pizza? Me, sure. The whole family after dinner. Great stuff. Keep them coming in. Thank you to Zara, as always, for sending her plentiful amount, but all the lads and lasses on Twitter who have copied us in. We will have more Tweets of the Week next week. Just wanted to throw this up at Christopher Green up using Stu's phrase, have a great weekend, everyone, and trust the process. And in Eddie and in the team we trust. Yeah, trust the process. It's definitely becoming our special phrase of the transfer window this time round. Okay, let's talk Dominic Szoboszlai. It took us a while to get his name right, and now it looks like he could be going elsewhere. But BT says Dominic Szoboszlai had said weeks ago that his intention was to sign for a club that will be playing Champions League football this coming season. Why would he sign for Liverpool? I mean, was it a direct quote? I don't think any of us will know, but I do agree that's what the narrative certainly was within the press. Is Szoboszlai the Windows Paqueta and we were never interested, says Stephen Kennedy. And Sean says, with Dom choosing to play Thursday night and Madison choosing Soho, who would you like to see us look at now? Personally, I think Gibbs White is brilliant. I think he'd be all over and move to us. So let's talk Szoboszlai first, and then we'll move on to, you know, who's next in the guessing game of Newcastle United incoming, Steve. Dominic Szoboszlai, it's not over till the proverbial lady sings, but it's an interesting one, this, isn't it? Because we've been linked with him for a while now, and I can understand people in the chat suggesting that this might be this window's Paqueta. What's your thoughts on all of this?
Well, I mean, there's no smoke without fire when the press get a hold of something. You know, they're usually pretty confident. You know, I speak to one or two guys, and they always say, "Oh, you know, that's being mentioned," but it tends to be, you know, the internet rather than the press themselves. It's fans putting stuff out. It's chat rooms or whatever you want to call them now. And so the press are usually pretty sharp. And on this one, they seem to be very much confident that Newcastle were definitely interested in this guy. Being interested, however, in actually getting something over the line, two different matters. It is becoming a bit of a Dutch auction, isn't it, in terms of the way that European players, you know, start looking around in the Premier League. You know, they all want to come to the Premier League. We know that. So we know he was destined for England. Yes, you hear these sort of, you know, he wants Champions League football. That's just somebody saying that's because that's what he's previously had. But you dangle enough money in front of somebody and they move. And it's exactly the same with the clubs that they're playing for, you know. And sometimes it's a case of not necessarily who gets in first, but, you know, what else is being dangled? You know, what else is being as part of the offer? And for that, we'll never know. Again, who's to say that it is Liverpool other than, again, the press? You hear nothing from them. Liverpool do tend to do their business a bit quieter than a lot of other clubs. You know, you look at McAllister, that came out of left field. Nobody really expected that. There was a lot of teams, especially Chelsea, were in the frame and being mentioned. But all of a sudden, for what looked like a very, very small fee of 35 million, McAllister went to Liverpool. right at the very start as well of the close season. I wasn't going to say the transfer window opening, but it hadn't officially opened until now. So it's one of those things. I mean, how big is your list now, Steve? 250, 280, something like that?
No, believe it or not. Now, I did get an update from Barry, so bear with us, but it's
Right.
not that bad because we'll have to remember that Barry originally was putting players on once and twice. My fault for asking him to do the list and not specifying it. It's 164 since the 6th of June.
Right, and this lad whose name I can't pronounce, but you can, and you can have it if you want. Since he was, he's one of 160 odd, and it's one of those things. I think we all travel down a certain path, don't we? I mean, a couple of weeks ago we were saying we hoped that Eddie was, the word out was that Eddie wanted the business done quick. He wanted things done before the beginning of July when the players come back. He wanted to get everybody into training together and all that type of thing. And now we hear that one of his targets might not be a target, or is no longer a target, or is a target that he's fired at and missed. But we'll never really know, because the nature of football is that it's deniable culpability, isn't it? Especially when it comes to transfers. You look at what's happened to Man United with De Gea. There's an example of a club who offer a contract. The player then signs a contract, a contract that was less than he was on. And then all of a sudden the club pull the contract and say, now we've changed our mind again, and leave the lad in the lurch. And I think as of tomorrow, he walks from Man United unless he signs the contract that has been withdrawn and tries to dangle it in front of them. It's a ruthless game. It's a ruthless market. And it's on both sides. You look at Rice. Somebody mentioned the whole situation with Elia Luko. And the way that she thinks that football transfers are played. But getting back to this one, we're just going to have to be patient, Steve. We're just going to have to, as Stewie said, trust the process, see what comes out the other end, and see what the starting lineup is going to be at the start of the season. If we don't get this lad, and he was somebody we want, we'll get someone equally as good, or equally who can match what Eddie Howe was looking from in a new player in this guy. So there's nothing really you can do if somebody ends up going elsewhere. That's football. We just know who to boo when Liverpool turn up, don't we?
Yeah, I mean, we seem to sign players that we don't hear about, George. The ones that play out in public seem to be the ones that don't tend to happen. What's your thoughts on the Szoboszlai saga?
I mean, what I've seen of it and hear about him, he's a good player, a player I think that would fit in with us. But the other thing is that I read on one of the platforms this week that he'd actually told his agent that he only wanted to go to Liverpool. He wasn't interested in Newcastle United. Well, if that's true, good luck to him. And we should just move on and forget about him. End of story. Good player though he might be. And I'm sure there are plenty more out there. And if he is another Stalking horse like Paqueta was, well, great. That's how I'd like it to be. I mean, the other thing that interested me in the last couple of days is Dan Ashworth's statement about private jets coming into Newcastle. How it's not going to happen anymore. They're going to land at Teesside and bring people up to Newcastle by helicopter or in a car, rather than the plane spotters see who's coming in and who isn't. Now, I find that fascinating. All these things to do with Newcastle United. I mean, isn't it great that our club's in such a position? It's got the whole world talking about everything from aeroplanes to footballers. And I think that's just absolutely smashing. So if Szoboszlai comes, fine. If he don't, there are lots more out there we can get for the money that they're talking about. And I'm sure that the team at Newcastle will do that.
Mark Bayer says, I'm loving George's chair, but wonder where the rest of the Ferrari is.
It's in the car park.
It's in the car park. Great answer. So, Mitch, somebody said in the chat about Szoboszlai there as well. I just want to pick this up. I think it was the Geordie Tuvalife. There we go. Does Big Dom's deal have to be completed by midnight tonight, or the close runs out?
Yeah, there is a time on the close, and maybe part of it is but my feeling all along has been, if somebody has a clause, we want that player, and we think that that's value for money, that player will come to Newcastle United, or at least very, very much will get to the point where we're talking with the player about coming because we've paid the release clause. I get the distinct impression they're looking at that clause and thinking, no, there's no value there. Sorry, don't want that value. Maybe clubs are looking to get involved after that expires, hoping they can get him for less, hoping they can put the selling club over a barrel and say, well, clause has expired now, so he has 10 million less, or he has 15 million less. It's all wheels within wheels. At the end of the day, I think we are doing our business in a very different way at the moment. Be that whether a lot of the business is being done away from Tyneside now or what have you, don't know, don't care. What I do like is once we settle on a player and get the deal done, it seems to come from left field now. There's not a lot of open speculation that seems to come to pass anymore. And I think that's a very good way to be. I'd rather play the game with the cards close to my chest rather than any other way, as far as I'm concerned. And some people may see that as frustrating. I just see it as clever. You know, we've made it clear to clubs we're not going to have our trousers taken down. We've made it clear to clubs, don't take the piss, so we'll just walk away. As I said before, one of the best phrases I've seen across a lot of platforms recently is this idea that we don't go down the list, we just go across. So the next one's just as good and everybody's just as happy to have that one. It's no ups and downs, it's just across. And I think you're right. I think the name that eventually gets signed will take us all by surprise.
Yeah. I think you're right there, Mitch. I mean, one of the names that we've been linked with in the past was Alvarez at Ajax, and he was supposed to be destined for Dortmund. Now, understand that deal's supposed to be dead in the water now, and who's to say that we don't go back in for him? Who's to say that we're not back in for him, and that's why the Dortmund deals fell through. You know, if we want to go back through the list, and you know, we know that list that you mentioned, Steve, was only start at the beginning of June. But if we want to go back to turn of the year, you know, you could probably double that list with players that we've been linked with. So, you know, Mitch is right. Somebody from left field, a name from left field, or someone that we've previously been linked with in the past, other than Barnetta, of course, because he's still in Jesmond Dean House. Who knows?
Well, this is it. I mean, the transfer window is something I used to avoid like the plague. But unfortunately, doing a podcast, you have to keep up to date with what's going on. You have to watch it. And Benny makes a great point. Remember Isaac last summer, heavily linked. Then the deal was completely dead. Then a few weeks later, it was all done within 48 hours. So
things change. Things change quickly sometimes, either for an individual or for a club or for the whole situation that we have. And so that who's to say that's not going to happen with another player somewhere down the line? You know, and I think we can. I think there's a lot of people getting very uptight about nothing. We need to sit tight and just let them get on with it. Trust it. Be relaxed about it. Enjoy the process. Don't get tied in knots about it. Don't go diving onto FIFA and looking up stats. Well, here's another one who's similar, and it doesn't work like that, and it's not going to work like that for us for sure. And so, yes, enjoy the speculation, but be a bit more chill about it.
Yeah, I mean, Ekitike was another one, wasn't he? This time last year that was all over the place, and then all of a sudden, if you remember when he went to PSG, all of a sudden he was the worst footballer in the world. And because we all knew. Strangely, none of us have seen him play, and nobody's seen him play. I don't think anyone at PSG seen him play. It's crazy, isn't it? It's crazy. And yes, I mean, I think what's more interesting is some of the mentions of players that might be leaving. You know, I mean, there's talk of West Ham wanting to speak to Lascelles, and there's talk of us on the other extreme wanting to go for Anderson, who's at Crystal Palace. It's always fascinating. That's what fascinates me more, I think, when players move within the league rather than necessarily someone from left field that comes from abroad. And you begin to look and see who fits in. And it's for years and years we used to talk about transfers out, and we used to say very few players who leave Newcastle go on to do better things. Then all of a sudden, under the Ashley regime, that changed for a long spell, It's I think when you talk to Supermac about transfers and the way things happen, and it's not necessarily the player gets stale, but it's just that the manager no longer likes the player or wants to play in a different style. And I think people forget that these are professionals and they're not too worried about moving on, because as I've heard in the past, said many times by footballers, you tend to know when your time's up at a club. That the signals come. I listened to a great podcast with David James, and he was talking about his time at Liverpool, and he said that they went out and I think it was Brad Friedel that came in, and he said Brad's attitude was totally different to mine. He says, because I was in a rut and I knew my time was up, and I'd been there 6 years or something like that. And he said, and I had no hard feelings. I thought the lad's attitude was far better than mine, mentally more than anything. And sometimes you do go stale, and sometimes a manager doesn't like you. Sometimes you're just ripe for a change. Some players are happy to stay for 10 years. Some players move on after 3 or 4. It's just what we're going to have to get used to as well. I think you look at where Man City are at the moment. They're moving players on, and the one thing you can see is every time they move someone on, even from a winning position that they're in, they always seem to get somebody better again. And the club moves forward. And I think that's where we're going to be with Newcastle soon. We're going to be with every transfer, with every change. It's moving forward. It's not taking a step back. And as fans, that's something we're going to have to get used to.
Yeah, definitely. Go for it, George. Go for it, yeah.
One of the straps, it was a Daz said, the trouble is we're losing out the clubs around us. Where does that come from? We're not losing out at all. We just didn't want those players. They've gone and we're looking elsewhere. I think to think about it is we're losing out to other clubs like that, particularly ones around us. It's quite negative. We're not. Our scouts and the management and Dan Ashworth, they know where they're looking, and I don't feel like we're losing out at all. In fact, some of the people that are being mentioned, they might be doing a favour going somewhere else.
Yeah.
If Madison's gone to Spurs for about 50 million a week more than we could pay, well, good luck to him. But that doesn't affect Newcastle for me, because he wasn't going to turn the world upside down for me. He might have been a good addition, but to say that we're losing out is I think it's too negative. We're not losing out. We're going elsewhere. The other thing I pick up on, Steve mentioned the De Gea contract. What a dreadful thing to do. But what a dreadful thing that must be in the dressing room. Your mate's been handed a piece of paper, and next week it means nothing. It doesn't mean that anything at all. Contrast that with what Newcastle United just done with Manakwinu this week. The lad's got an offer from abroad, and Dan Ashworth wrote a statement on Twitter, which I couldn't believe, but if it's true, fantastic. He said, Javier has been a model professional from day one, and has done everything this club's asked him to do. We're going to waive any transfer issues at all, and we wish Javier well. Now, what a contract.
Is that an official line? I don't know. I think so.
I'm not convinced it is, but either way.
I mean, if it's Twitter, you've always got to be very careful. It could be that snide account which is pretending to be Dan Ashworth, which is a bit cruel on people. But if listen, it wouldn't surprise us if Newcastle did do something like that. I'm not sure they'd be as open. But yeah, George, I get your point.
Do you think it's as official as the one that was announced about Zlatan with his Man United contract when he was staying in a hotel and he took a bottle of juice out of the cabinet, out of the fridge, and then found out when his pay slip came in that they deducted £1 for the cost of it. you know, this is where the internet takes me, you know. But I think what the best way to look at the transfer market, and when another club buys a player that you're interested in, treat it as the Saturday night game of bingo in the club. They've won the line, but you're going for the house.
That's a great way of looking at it. And yeah, a lot of the comments coming in, Chippers is one, there's a few others as well, saying, you know, just reiterating the point that, you know, we haven't missed out on some of these players because Newcastle probably aren't even in for them. You know, it's just the media and the agents who like to whip it up because, you know, they get clicks. The news, you know, the news outlets get clicks. The agents can get their players moved off the back of a bit of speculation because they can build. I'm sorry, my command of Arabic is not very good. I don't know what the name is. So I can't take your question though, and it's perfect English. Building a new stadium in the future or developing St James's Park. What do you guys think? Steve, you know, it's become a bit of a talking point this week. We touched on it briefly on the Amigos last week, but it's built momentum within the fan base. People are talking about it. I mean, still, you know, mindset for me is short term increase, long term potentially look at new stadium with, you know, with communication with the fans. Do you know what I mean? Make sure that we can communication with the fans and the city, I should say, that because we need to make sure that we don't upset our neighbours wherever we end up moving to if we do move. But what's your view, Steve? I think short term is we add.
I agree in the first bit, which is short term. You develop St James's Park. They've obviously looked at the East Stand. To put an announcement out that they want to do something with the East Stand tells me that they've already made their decision. They've already looked at something that they think's viable and viable enough to increase the capacity. So that's a start. That then frees them up to do whatever they want to do with the Gallagher end, perhaps the following season or the season after that. So it tells you that the short and medium term plans are very much, as they've said, as Mirdad and Amanda have reiterated on a number of occasions, the uniqueness of St James's Park and the city centre, a ground there, is what makes Newcastle United. And I was listening to people this week. I listened to a couple of podcasts, and it was mentioned on both of them, with people from other clubs saying how unique it was, but their only gripe was that they were stuck in level 7. And they wished that if when the next time they came to St James's Park, something could be done to bring the away fans a little bit lower. Well, I think you've had that one, guys. I think Newcastle United are more interested in looking after their own fans than they are looking after away fans at the moment. That's their priority. I'm very much in the camp of I want to stay at St James's Park. If it came to it that we had to move, then the only viable place for me would be on Leazes Park, and that would be built on the back of the Leazes end, up over, while keeping the ground where it is. And then after you've got this super stadium in Leazes Park, you then, with a fan park, you then demolish St James's Park, and bring Leazes Park closer to the city centre. That would be the buyback, or the payback for the city in allowing that to happen. Anyone who, and I'm sure Mitch will touch on this, and I think it was something we'll want to touch on in terms of the fan park later on, but that gives them the opportunity to do something special. It's always going to be, and you know, people want to have a super stadium, but there's no reason why we can't have a super stadium in the same location as we are at the moment. I'm very much in that camp. By the time I think there's a new stadium, I'll be long gone.
George, what's your feelings? We've had a week to stew on it. We've seen more reaction on social media. What's your view? Short term improvement.
Steve will be long gone. I'll be a funny shape then.
No.
Look, I still think, and all right, you can call us old-fashioned. I still think the cathedral on the hill is very important to the club and to the fans, and to the city in many ways. And there's lots of things in our favour about increasing the stadium size at the moment that weren't in our favour the last time it was redeveloped. For example, the last time it was redeveloped, there was nobody in our favour. The council weren't in our favour. the university weren't in our favour, and the people that own Leazes Terrace, etc., weren't in our favour. At the moment, all of those people are short of money, including the council. And I'm sure Newcastle United could do something persuasive in that way to make these people think more about letting them develop. The other thing is architectural skills and materials since the West Stand was built have changed enormously. And I'm sure there are ways in which of adding to that stand without actually encroaching too far on either Leazes Terrace or the buildings behind the stand. They could use other materials and other ways of designing the thing. I'm quite certain that could be done. So for me, it's stay where we are, certainly short term. And the other bit, I agree with Steve, if we are going to have a new ground, let's persuade the Leazes Park people to let it go in that direction. And persuade the Freeman to let the Leazes Park people have the what is now St James's Park, because we need to remember the Freeman own St James's Park, not the council or anybody else, and they've got to be persuaded as well. And I'm sure there's things that could be done to help them.
Okay, yeah, a big thank you to Borry and Mag. Salem is the Arabic name. Thanks very much for that translation. Yeah, Mitch, just your views. We've had a week to stew on it, and I just wanted to know what people thought.
I think everybody's well aware of my views over time, discussing what do you do with St James's Park.
Where do we play in the meantime, says Blue Rhythm Boy.
Yep, and that's another good conversation to go to when you look at all the various solutions. Very much like many deals in football at the moment, they're now real estate players with a football problem. And that you could say that for many deals, including the Man United potential sale at the moment, is a real estate player with a football problem. Because there's not that much in terms of assets there, and the assets that are there aren't in good shape. And so we look at this situation that we have where staying at our ancestral home is certainly in the mindset of the owners at the moment. They've made that quite clear. What we do going forward, however, very much depends on what we can do with these stands. May depend on what we do with fan zones, etc. Staying within the city, I think, is essential for everybody being on the same page here as well. And that's where, if we are going to build new, moving to Leazes Park and then working with the council and everybody else in that respect becomes paramount, I think. But I think we're in a very different world now where some of those conversations will be very, very different. I don't think we'll be talking about bats and trees and no business on the moor again, without belittling that, by the way. That's, I think that became such a very difficult argument to have. It was the wrong argument at the wrong time and in the wrong place, I think. I think now that would be a very different discussion with all the potential development within the city that could come with a continued relationship with the current owners. I've long hung my hat on a new ground is the solution long term. But what is long term? Where are we at? Do we have enough at the moment going forward? If we were able to increase by a small percentage, would that do for the short term? There's no easy answer. There never was and there never will be. I think the biggest difference is under this ownership we may feel that we have been consulted with, and I hope at the end of the day that is in reality what happens, that it's not lip service consultation like some of the ticketing stuff has been recently, in my opinion. I think it has to be a lot deeper and a bit more grown up than that. But as fans as well, I think we've got a fan base who fully understand the difference between having an owner in Mike Ashley who would just do things to us and didn't care about the consequence, didn't care about fallout, and having owners who may wish to interact in a more positive basis and at least feel that consultation has been done in a right and proper way. I think we have a very different sort of set of parameters to play with there. So yeah, I mean,
can somebody answer that question? Who are the freemen of the city? I mean, it's a bit of a, you know.
Well, it's a very Steve. Are you? I mean, it's a long, there are a long historical group of people who own various parts of the city and own the town moor, and they're the people that are allowed to graze their cattle on the town moor for free. If you're a freeman and you've got cattle, you can graze them for free on the town moor, and they've been around a very, very long time. And it just so happens that they own all St James's Park, and I believe most of Lees's Park as well.
So you know when Alan Shearer gets made freeman of the city, when Glenn McCrory gets made freeman of the city, do they have any voting rights?
No, they're honorary. They're honorary.
Right, got you. Because I mean, it shows my ignorance.
Well, no, not at all. You're not alone, Steve. A lot of people wouldn't know anything about that. The freemen we're talking about were people that were created hundreds of years ago, and the current freemen are their descendants. It's passed down through families, and there are some notable families in the city. So, but they still have a large say. Yes, the council act as their land as their agents and standing landlords, if you like, when setting the right rent for St James's Park and all that sort of thing. But it's still the property of the freemen, and they would have a final say. There's no doubt about that.
Okay, great stuff. Senk wants to know, I want to ask you guys, if we're going to build a stadium, what should be the capacity? I mean, it's $1 million question, that isn't it? Because we don't know how many fans we could attract. I think it's safe to say that in the current situation, if we go in the same vein again next season, which I think most of us feel we will, we could probably attract crowds for some games, certainly beyond 60,000. I do know when we've asked this question before, Steve, people have said 70, 80, but realistically, Steve, would you like to put a figure on it?
Well, I listened to it again this week, a lot of conversation about attendances and the demand in the Premier League. Arsenal 60,000, Tottenham 62, Man United wanting to push up to beyond 80, 85. Man City, and building in the corners, filling in the corners and putting their tiers on to go above 60. West Ham are already over 60. That seems to be the benchmark figure. I think the new Everton ground again over 60. Liverpool, with the redevelopment they're done, that's going to push them over 60. When St James's Park was redeveloped and went up to 52, I think we were the second biggest stadium in the country. We're down to 8th or 9th and below. And of all those clubs, I think we're the up and coming club in terms of where we've been and where we think we're heading. So I suppose the world's your oyster when it comes to picking a figure out the air and saying, could we fill 80? Could we fill 90? If we fill 90, then we're talking about a ground the size of Wembley. Anything less than that, and we're hovering around the size of Old Trafford, the current dump that is Old Trafford on 75. It's certainly Newcastle United are going to certainly look to be above, I think, 65,000. I think 52 at the moment. We know that they can put it up to 60 by increasing the Gallagher end. That was a conversation that was had at the fans forum under Mike Ashley's tenure. I remember the finance director when we spoke and asked about any plans for redevelopment and extending the Gallagher end. And remember, like I say, this was during Ashley's time, and fans again round the table thought the demand was there. Obviously, this was before where they ended up putting 10,000 tickets on sale because there was a shortage. But the big thing there was that they had put a price on each seat, and they said that the development of the ground would be, and it was a crazy figure, and they just didn't think it was cost effective to do it. I think that at one point the figure was something like £500,000 per seat, and they didn't see the value in increasing the ground by 5,000, 6,000 to 8,000. they said that the outlay was just too much for them. They just didn't see it as being viable, and I think they were fearful again, as and rightly so, that they probably couldn't fill the ground because they knew what was coming. The East Stand, they've already said the development of the East Stand would probably stick another 5 to 6 on. So you're looking there at 66,000 if you do the East Stand as they're proposing, and then also do the Gallagher end and put a big tier on. Corporate wise, I mean, I mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. If it was me, I'd clear all the office people out, all the office staff. Anyone who is occupying any spare capacity in terms of space within St James's Park, I would be building an office block on top of the car park in the corner, and I would be saying, right, run the club's offices out of there, and that would just be to squeeze the extra hospitality in to fill the director's box, and it wouldn't take much to have the sort of suites that they're looking for, because there is a dearth of space, but there are plenty of offices being used on various floors, and that would at least increase that bit of area in the ground. But whatever comes is going to come with a mix of seating, standing, and executive boxes. We know that for a fact. I mean, there is talk, and unfortunately, the system that's been adopted by the Premier League for safe standing can't increase the capacity. They haven't gone with the German model that we looked at, which was 3-1. They've gone for a 1-to-1 system. That's the one that's been adopted at Wolves, at Man United, at Celtic, and at the other clubs who are installing it, and us for that little corner. And there is talk of, if it goes well, and obviously the lads and lasses who are in the corner are going to be watched. They're going to be making sure that there's no shenanigans goes on, no flares going off, no undue vision put on them, or awkwardness, because they do want to extend the Gallagher. They want to extend it across the top, the front two layers of the Gallagher, and make that safe standing as well. And that may come the following season. But as I say, it's not going to increase capacity. So it's merely a comfort for those who want to stand, and a desire being brought in, because the voices are out there asking for it. Probably a quick win for the club if they do need quick wins, and I don't think they do. It's just that they're being seen to be listening to a particular cohort of fans who want to do that, and they're falling in line. So it's an interesting one, but today there are probably people out there that say we could fill 100.
There will be. Paul Gallant says he's going to give you the donation for the food bank, Steve. So just get in touch with Steve at Twitter via the food bank as well. Just go that way, Paul. That's your best way to do it, mate. So that's great stuff. Thanks very much for that, Paul.
Yeah. Just put it in. Just follow the food bank link that's there on the food bank website. You can make the deposit there, and just put a note on who it's from, and just say, in light of bet. Then the people at the food bank will see that. The auditor will see it. They'll know exactly where it's come from, Paul. That's the best way to do it. Go on the Newcastle Food Bank website and do it directly to them. That's the best way to do it.
Okay, great stuff. Somebody was saying in the chat there, George and Mitch, I'm not sure whether it's true that there's no league club can have a bigger attendance than Wembley. I would imagine. That's rubbish, is it? Or is that
absolute rubbish? I would say, yeah.
It's kind of be an unwritten rule.
No, and what a daft rule it would be. I mean, if the club's got the capacity and so on to build a stadium of that size, well, good luck to them. I don't care who it is, but no, it's that sounds like pie in the sky to me, I'm afraid. But to be honest, if you're talking like that, I mean, imagine if Man U got a takeover that suited them, they decided to rebuild. They're up to 75,000 now, aren't they? It wouldn't take them long to get to 100,000. I wouldn't have thought. I don't think it'll happen, but
no. Empty seats is a big thing, George, isn't it? Though there's nothing worse than seeing empty seats.
And that applies to your television audience, your sponsors, everything else. And I think that was the big fear of Ashley, wasn't it? That's why he gave 10,000 tickets away rather than let them be empty. And I know he used to come into the university, and students used to get tickets for a £5, where everybody, other fan in the city, was paying £25, £35. The students were getting them for a £5 just so you could fill the seats. So, empty seats are a killer. There's no doubt about that for lots of reasons. But television, their sponsors, all hate empty seats.
Yeah, Mitch, what's your thoughts? 65, 70, 75?
In terms of capacity, we've got to be very careful. You've got to look at the Italian example, whereby in the 80s and the 90s, they were encouraged to grow their grounds, and attendances went up and up and up. And then they had Italia 90, and they were encouraged to expand grounds for that. And if you look at what they've done subsequently, the clubs which have produced new grounds now, they're sort of 40, 50. They've brought it right down, because in some cases they were embarrassed at Italian Cup games having 25,000 people rattling around in an 80,000 seater stadium, and it looked bad. And it also meant it was difficult to upkeep that 80,000 stadium when so many seats weren't being used and there wasn't enough income to support it all. So I think you've got to find that right balance, because we will not fill. I don't care what anybody says. If we've got a full fixture schedule, Premier League, FA Cup, League Cup, a European fixture, let's say Champions League on a regular basis, are we going to fill 80,000 every game? Answer is no. We might fill it for some games, but we need to be aware of how many. And I would rather we had full grounds than people scrambling for tickets at the end of it, than having everybody happy for a ticket when it's suited, but then disappearing when it suits, and we end up with lots of empty spaces in the ground, which is just as embarrassing and just as difficult to manage. So it's finding the right balance, if you ask me.
Yeah, Juventus was a perfect example. I mean, Juventus built their own ground, 41,000. They were ratting around in the Delle Alpi, weren't they? That was built for Italian, or used for Italia 90, as you say. And I think what was interesting, I think the Italian model was totally different as well, because I think the Italian stadiums were all owned by the cities themselves, and the clubs just rented them. And I think when Juventus built their own stadium and reduced the capacity, they actually took ownership of their own. So it's one of the few grounds in Italy, in Italian football, that's actually owned by the club itself, which gives them that.
Steve, is that one of the reasons the two Milans play in one stadium?
Yeah, well, another example, and again, they're demolishing that and building a new one. Or there's talk of it, that the final plans have been laid. But it is. You're right, Mitch. The way that Italian football went, and then for years it was the Juventus fans themselves that kicked up a stink with the Agnellis and said, "Look, we're looking ridiculous playing around in this stadium. It's crazy. We can't fill it." And like you say, they went out and built a stadium for 41,000.
Okay, interesting.
I think we just have to be so careful that we don't end up with a bit of a white elephant on my hands that we spend a lot of money on, and it might be wonderful and lush and all of that, but it isn't used to its best capacity. I'd rather we had an absolutely spot on, high quality, 65,000 seat stadium, which had absolutely everything in it to give us a unique and wonderful match day experience, and fill the ground week in, week out, midweek, weekend, whenever we have to play. And I think that really is something we'll have to seriously think about.
Yeah, okay, great stuff. We got over 15 minutes over the half-time interval.
Wow.
So I will, because we've had so much to talk about, lads. Just want to say a big thank you to our sponsors. And they are our main sponsors, and they are New Workwear. Let me just get rid of the other banner there. New Workwear. And as you know, each week, not only do we show their logo, but we also show me and the lads doing a little bit of this. amazing what a bit of cod liver oil and multivitamins do, lads. Anyway, here's the ads.
A big thanks to all our sponsors: Skips and Bins, telephone 0800 25 45 25 3, email inquiries at skipsandbins.com, website skipsandbins.com, easy contract free and pay-as-you-go waste collection. Thanks to Mr. Vicky's sauces, which are handmade in Cumbria. Their website is mrvickies.co.uk. If you want to contact the guys, email info@mrvickies.co.uk or telephone 01768 210 102. Big thanks to New Workwear. They are an agile and dedicated workwear provider launched in 2018. For more information, go to their website, newworkwear.com. Big thanks, as always, to Media Arts for the help with the video side of things. If you want to support the channel, hit the subscribe button, become a subscriber today. Hit the thumb up under the video, which likes the video, and click share to share to your other social media. Click join if you want to become a member of the channel for as little as $1.99, or take a one-off payment for the cult membership. You can get in via this QR code if you've got a smartphone, or look for membership pack on the website, nufcmatters.com. What do you get for your one-off £25 payment? You get a scarf, a pen, and a cup, and a membership card, and entry into the monthly draw. Don't forget, if you want a car sticker, all you need to do is subscribe to the show and then email John at NUFC Matters, and he will post you a free car sticker out. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. And we also support the food bank on this channel. NUFCfansfoodbank.co.uk is the virtual matchday bucket where you can make a virtual donation 365 days of the year. The new Alan Shearer raffle is underway. 150 tickets at £1 a ticket. You could win a limited edition signed Alan Shearer ball from the 260 dinner. Enter now at nufcmatters.com. We've got a few events coming up. August the 5th sees Gavin Peacock at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Tickets are £10, and you can get them now from nufcmatters.com. Our Christmas event takes place on the 7th of December at the Tyneside Irish Centre, and that's an evening with Frank Clark. Tickets are £15 and available from nufcmatters.com. Finally, Waddle, Keegan, Beardsley and Friends, the class of 84, is on at the Town Theatre and Opera House on Westgate Road in Newcastle on Thursday, January the 23rd. Tickets are now available from the Town Theatre and Opera House.co.uk or telephone 0844 2491 000. That's the box office telephone number 0844 2491 000.
Okay, time for Steve Hastie's favourite part of the week. Lookalikes flying in this week, as you would imagine. No Keith Patterson to laugh along at the Steve Hastie ones that were being sent. Steve is happy with Tonali signing.
That looks more like Keith with hair, actually.
This one, is it essential to have a Hastie to be rocking in Elton's band? Said Jacob.
Yes. There's two actually, if you look closely.
And Steve Hastie ghost hunting at Chillingham Castle.
Yeah. You'll see that shortly.
Do I see Steve Hastie's head in the centre of the photo?
No.
And Hastie hungover. A poor dog. I knew as soon as I saw that dog in the news, you would get compared to that dog. Is Steve Hastie going? That was just from Tango Oscar. I'm not sure. Oh yes, it was an event that I've promoted.
That's me hungover and having a coffee.
That's your coffee, yes. For Steve Hastie.
Yeah, I'm happy with them. Yep, fine. Yep, nice little dogs.
You're not happy with this one, I doubt. From Tom.
That one. That is Patterson. That.
And Mitch doing a Hastie.
Oh, God.
From Steve Kennedy. Thank you, mate. And I think Hastie's up his rocker, said Albert.
Yeah. Well, Albert knows, doesn't he? Albert's the expert.
Howe, Hastie, what's going on here, says Stephen Kennedy.
God, hey. Stephen, What goes on in the shop stays in the shops.
Caught you at the shops, yeah. And here's Hasty on the Tyne giving his best Crocodile Dundee impression, says Jacob.
Yeah, aye. What is that? A perch or something?
Perch, yeah. James Perch. This one's from Rita.
Yeah. Nice self-portrait, Rita.
And another one from Rita.
Again.
Not even sure what that is.
Send
Steve,
photographs of myself in now, man.
Sam Chipperfield says Steve Hasty and Shaun of the Dead.
Ah, dear me. Dear me.
And Sam Chipperfield says Hasty look alike.
Yeah.
A little Scotty Terrier.
You know what? I'm coming attuned to this now. I'm yeah.
Now, I don't know if that's a bad one. Or, is that a bad one, Steve? Would that go down as a bad one?
You're a lot thinner than me. So I suppose, every cloud.
And only one person looking forward to his holidays, Steve Hasty.
Yeah, that's quite good, actually. That is.
Well, it's a new one, Steve. I always enjoy it when it's a new one.
Good, yeah.
As is this from Melbourne, Monkey Hasty and Friend.
Yeah, Melbourne.
This, I've got no idea what this is. Dogs from underneath. So now we've got underneath dogs. We've seen all the tops of dogs. Now people
are now walking their dogs on glass coffee tables and taking photos of them. This is worrying, this, Steve.
There's that dog again, too, looking like Hasty best in the show from Jimmy.
Was that Ozzy Osbourne, that?
Oh, it looked like Ozzy Osbourne, didn't it?
Shades of Ozzy there.
George, you didn't escape again this week, mate. You and Mitch sitting together. When you get that perfect pose moment between father and son, got the Muppets out again. John Radford and Willy Wonka from Sid.
That's a good one, that's good.
Yeah, excellent that one, Sid. Yeah. Really, really good. Hope you're well, pal. And Barack Obama and Indonesian photographer Ilham Anas.
Wow.
See your likeness there, can't you?
That is.
Certainly can.
Yeah.
If Snoop Dogg was Swedish, I'd just put that in because it was neither a tweet or a lookalike, but it is very good. And 100% Mags thought that Steve Bruce had returned to management with Gerardo Martino being the new technical director. He had to take a double look. Poor Liam got some stick for having a mustache this week. A selection of the ones that were sent in. Freddie Mercury, Tom Selleck, Pablo Escobar, John Cleese, Ron Burgundy, and the guy who was on our poster last week, of course.
Is that Ted Lasso as well?
Ted Lasso, yeah.
Yeah, Pablo Escobar.
Hi, Pablo Escobar. Russ Tatters said Steve Watson looking like. Tim Cairn said Steve Watson looking like. It's Russ Tatters, sorry.
Russ does look at. He does have shades of him, yeah.
He does, so I've got that in. And I noticed Chris Wood in the last episode of an Aussie period drama.
What is? Hey, Jacob's really getting into it, isn't he? There, wow.
He is. I had this one from John. Thanks, John. And Elton John's final show this weekend at Glastonbury. Another one of Elton John, Nicola Sturgeon and Elton John.
Yeah, which one's which?
Very difficult to answer that. We had a similar one last week with Sandro Tonali and Adam Driver from Star Wars.
Yeah, that is good. Yeah.
Steve, you've made it onto Coronation Street. Yeah, I knew that was going to get picked out, this week when I watched it. One from Tommy, my son. He wants to send you Kylo Ren and Tonali. Another a different angle, but that is very good. Thank you. And George Mitchell making a cameo on Goodfellas. It's actually Henny Youngman. Excellent, that, George. That's a nice one, isn't it?
Wish I had his money.
Yeah.
Stu Penman and Sir Keith working as stunt doubles in Hollywood. And Keith being naughty at Glastonbury.
That is good. That.
It is definitely very funny. Certainly, after all this time, I've always thought it. Here is Keith as Les on Vic Reeves' big night out.
Hey, yes. Class that.
Found this random lookalike. Does Super Mac know he's got a long lost son out there?
Hey, dear me, yes. Wow.
See that? See the like this.
Callum Smith and Jim Caviezel. Pretty good. Pretty good, that one.
Yeah.
Claudio Ranieri moonlighting at Tesco's. And nice to see Roy Hodgson soaking up the sun on holiday.
Oh,
A non-dog lookalike from David Cook, Tonali and Zola. Not bad.
This is good.
Not bad.
Ian Beale and
Axel Rose.
Axel Rose.
That's good. That is. Hey, yes. Yes.
And that's can't wait to see the trailer for this one. People say that looks like Sylvester Stallone.
It does actually.
I've had a couple of them sent in, but it does look a little bit like him. Liam Kennedy again, Mickey Quinn, and the guy out of South Park, Randy Marsh, and the guy from Hello Hello, and Liam from Tim Kent,
Andre, yeah.
and Wheeler from Yellowstone, and Liam.
Yeah, give him a hat.
He's had some stuff this week. Alison Becker's left Liverpool and signed for Ryanair.
Yes.
And Robin, Ruud van Nistelrooy and Harry.
Hey,
And Rita.
Rita's on drugs, I think.
Steve Bruce going shopping and having a 6 bacon buddy for extra energy. And Robbie Savage and Rylan.
Hey, God.
Can you see that one?
Look at the clip of Robbie Savage.
Sunderland owner and John Boy Walton.
Yeah, Kirill. Yep.
Oh, I've had that one. The Sandwich Man, Keith Patterson, after gorging himself on a Friday night show. He's getting some stick for eating on the show, isn't he?
He is.
Stu Penman, minus the glasses, from Brian.
Harry.
I've had that one. And yes, that was Stu Penman as well from Lambeth Mag.
But he's
Carlos the Jackal and Dennis Irwin.
that is good. That is good.
Tom Dixon.
Yeah.
Keith, unidentified flying object. Keith Patterson. He had a few this week.
He's been seeing things for years.
Brendan Rodgers and Madam Fufu.
Yeah. Yep.
From Tom. Last few. John Travolta and Spurs new manager.
Yes. Postecoglou.
Leighton Baines and Miles Kane.
Yeah. You can see that a bit.
And St. Ledger and Mark Wahlberg.
Wow.
That's the winner this week. I thought that was very good.
That's good.
Great stuff. Thanks to everybody for sending them in. Lots and lots. There's a few I didn't get to. I'll add them into next week's. If you've got any lookalikes, send them over to us and we will feature them. Couple of questions from Sutty for the Mitchells. Mitch, have you treated Mitch Senior to any delicacies out there?
Oh, aye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's that.
But
And
it's nothing I've tried before either, to be fair. Because you've been able to
It's
get
not
plenty.
jungle, you know. It's not
a
the
whippersnapper.
jungle of Dubai.
Has Mitch heard any whispers on any additional sponsors?
Nothing. A lot of things are very quiet at the moment. I'm due to have another follow-up with Noon this week, and so I'll see if I can fish anything off the lad from Noon if he's heard anything. He's still waiting for stock from Castoria. I still find it unbelievable that one of our main sponsors is someone who wants to sell Castoria kit here in the Middle East, and they're not even answering the emails. And Noon even replied to the tweet from the club announcing the second kit. And I'm thinking, well, you're not helping your mate in the procurement department there, because if you're going to have people hunting for this kit, they're going to be looking hard and fast for out. So I think at the minute, like I say, everything's still wide open. And I do think the club are being very choosy about who they wish to partner with, and quite right too. I think if you see how some people's sponsorship, like is it Villa's shirt sponsor, potentially their UK company that owns the brand in the UK is potentially about to go bankrupt, and yet they're still on the front of the shirt for Villa for the next season. You know, things like that.
They are, you know what they are, Mitch? They're also a brand that got thrown out by Norwich. They went to Norwich, and Norwich said, "No, you're not a decent brand. They've various bits and pieces on social media about them, and various comments that they'd made themselves, and I think the contract was signed and then ripped up by Norwich. Next thing you know, this unknown company with no presence in the UK is suddenly sponsoring Aston Villa. Who's doing the due diligence at Villa, I wonder?
This is the problem with a lot of companies like that, though, Steve. This is exactly where it comes from, and why there are question marks. You know, some of these things buried within those Man City charges relate to companies which may or may not exist, and may or may not be from where they are from. And I think that's right, particularly when you look at betting companies, anything to do with crypto and alternative non-regular finance. You've got to move very carefully before you decide you're going to partner with something like that.
Yeah, Inter Milan signed a contract with a crypto company for 20 or 30 million euros and didn't get paid a penny, and ended up having to find a new sponsor just for to play in the Champions League final. And I think they also said that when they were, obviously Chelsea's another example. Chelsea have lost their sponsor, and now they're going for a betting company because the sponsor they wanted was going to be Paramount Plus, and they're claiming that that Sky TV and BT, or whatever BT is now going to be called, had complained to the Premier League. Well, turned out it wasn't that, from what I've read. It was actually the Premier League being worried that they might, and they're advertising a TV channel that has no football. But because of that, Chelsea, and there was one story that said, you know what, Chelsea have just dropped that one in, so that when they do come in and they go, well, we couldn't have a first choice, so we'll have a gambling one, and we're only going to have it till 2026 when you throw out gambling contracts anyway. But 99% of the gambling sites that are promoting in football clubs are there purely for the Far East. They're not for anything to do. And most of them have no presence whatsoever in the UK. It's all to do with Far East betting and Far East gambling. And that, again, should raise red flags all over the Premier League, but unfortunately it doesn't. And you're not going to be able to have it on the shirt, but you might be able to have it on a sleeve in future, or you might be able to have it on training kit. It's you know what? It's so ridiculous the way that the Premier League is operating at the moment. In terms of what they're allowing things to get away with, and the control that they think they've got, but actually have no control over.
I love Sean's explanation of crypto sponsors. He went, crypto sponsors are like a wet fart. You can get away with it, or you might have to change your pants.
Exactly. Yeah. It costs you 3 times as much.
Sean, that's brilliant. Glenn Atkinson says, ask George. Well, we don't normally do that tonight, but we will tonight. He says, George, if he sees Eddie Howe still being here 5 years from now.
Yes. I just have a good feeling that we're going to do a lot of things with Eddie Howe. Very impressed with what he's done with the squad so far, how he's changed things, how he's made them fit. If you think about 18 months ago when we were talking about the dinosaur training methods that Bruce was subjecting his lads to, I don't think half of them could run a 100-yard sprint. Now they're as fit as butcher's dogs, all of them, every one of them, and I think that's just the beginning of something good. And we've had a little trip to Wembley. We're now in the Champions League. I'm hoping that Eddie Howe is there for at least 5 years before he hands over to the next successor.
Mitch?
Well, yeah, there's no reason why we can't be behind Eddie long term as long as he's doing the business. My feeling is, though, there will be no sentiment that if people within the higher tiers of the club feel he's reached his zenith, then that's it. And I think that's the way it should be. At the end of the day, I think a bit of ruthlessness doesn't hurt anyone.
Steve, what's your thoughts? I mean, I could see Eddie Howe being here in 5 years' time. I think this season is still a very pivotal season that's coming up. I think a top 5 finish, if top 5 gets you Champions League, and a couple of good cup runs, maybe getting in the group, getting out of the group in the Champions League. I think that would be deemed a good season. You know, I still think European qualification would be deemed good by Newcastle, but having tasted Champions League, you have a feeling that the owners might be a bit disappointed. But surely they've got to give him a little bit of benefit for the doubt, and benefit of the doubt. You know what I mean? And give him that opportunity to have maybe a slightly bad season next season. If finishing 6th or 7th is what we would call a bad season now.
I can see what I can hear what you're saying on that one. Give him a 5-year contract. Being here in 5 years would put him on a par with where Guardiola is now. You know, the 7 years that he's had at City, moving into his 8th season. It would put him on a par with the 8-year contract that we gave to Pardew that lasted 2. You also have to think of burnout, managerial burnout now. I think the days of a manager being there 10 or 15 years, like it was with Sir Alex and like it was with Arsene Wenger, I think those days have long gone. I think that the pressures that managers are under now, I think managers do burn out. I think you look at Mourinho, you know, 3 years, always looking for a new challenge, probably mentally as well as physically and emotionally. It depends on Eddie himself as well. I don't see the England job as being a threat for Newcastle United in terms of how long Eddie will be here. What I see is the pressure, if anything, and that pressure is the pressure that Eddie finds himself under, the pressure that the club at the top level, in terms of whether he brings success. What is class of success? Is it 1 trophy, 2 trophies? Is it merely finishing in the top 6? Would a top 6 place be a drop-off when you've been in the top 4? From a financial point of view, certainly it would be classed as that in the boardroom, I would imagine. And I think that it at the moment, everything looks rosy. Everything looks fine in the boardroom. But who's to say that Mehrdad and Amanda will be there in 5 years' time? You know, they'll have an exit strategy. There'll be changes afoot. You look at City in terms of, you know, the Mansour, he then allowed new investment to come in from America. There's investment came in from the Far East. You know, everything's a moving platform. It's a moving platform on the pitch. It's a moving platform in terms of the coaches, and it's a moving platform in the boardroom, both in terms of personnel and the finances. So there's an awful lot of things get juggled around, and then the other big pressure comes from the fans. And regardless of what we think is success, I think the success, if we finish 6th, there will be elements of the fan base that will have rumblings. We're already getting elements of the fan base or rumbling because we're not buying the player that the Chronicle told we were buying 2 weeks ago, and we don't like the nature of the player that we might be buying. You see it at the start of the season. You saw it last season. A player has 3 or 4 bad games, and all of a sudden he's absolute crap. You know, there's all sorts go on now, all sorts of things happening. I don't think as I say, it's like the Wenger days or like the Sir Alex days. I think there's so many different things that on that moving platform that can have a bearing on how long Eddie Howe lasts. But the big one will be Eddie himself.
Yeah, of course. Lots of people saying he could potentially be picked up by by England. You know, that's always a big worry, I guess. International football comes calling.
The big difference, Steve, is it's instant, isn't it?
Yes.
Not the days I started going. You have to wait for the ping coming out and see what was happening. It's on social media before you get home. It's instant.
Yeah, it is. I love. Go on, Steve. Finish off.
Brendan Rodgers was a perfect example at the start of the season. You would never imagine that Brendan Rodgers would have got the bullet at Leicester. You know, you saw Leicester as being a club very similar to us in terms of they just won the FA Cup a couple of seasons earlier. They'd won the league prior to him coming. He was brought in to move the club forward. Obviously, they had all the issues behind the scenes. There's financial issues, but I don't think Leicester was ever on that platform of being one of the bottom three. In fact, I think if Leicester fans were true, they expected to be in the at least Europa League this season. Things tailed up, and before you knew it, that was it. You know, the press got on them. Certain sections of the fan base got on. The pressure builds up, and the manager's gone. And wow, when a club makes a decision, it's like that, isn't it? I mean, Southampton, 6 games in, you could be gone. Then all of a sudden, the replacement's gone as well. That's the pressure that clubs are under. It just needs a poor start the season, and all things change. Let's hope that we don't have a poor start the season. Let's hope that everything goes well. We've got the added dimension of Champions League football with more games, midweek games. The squad's got to be stronger. There's lots of things that need to fall in place, and that's why this close season is probably going to be the most important for Eddie Howe, because he's got to get a squad in place that gives him that good start and gives him a foothold for future European football. Because I don't think we'll win the Champions League this season to guarantee ourselves a place next season. I think we're going to have to finish in the top 4 again.
Yeah. Okay. Great question. This from James McLeod. I saw earlier. Hi, gents. I know there's a lot of speculation surrounding midfield and forward-thinking players. In your opinion, do you think our strength and depth in defence is enough for the upcoming season, George?
Well, for me, it is at the moment. Yes. I mean, if you think about it, people are talking about another left back. Yeah, we've got Dan Burn that can play there. Matt Targett's still there. On the other side, we've got Kieran Trippier and this new lad from West Ham still in the background, and lots of good stories about what he's producing in training and so on. And in the centre, well, Shah and Botman. In Botman, I think we've got the best centre back in the country at the moment, and I don't see that changing. For the moment, for the short term, unless they do something different, I'm not unhappy that Lascelles is still there somewhere in the background. So, no, I think we've got the building blocks there to see the season out. It depends, obviously, injuries could change all of that, but I that's one part of the team I'm not desperately worried about. I wouldn't be unhappy to see a new left back, but I don't think it's an absolute priority.
Mitch?
I would be more comfortable with another left fullback. And I would also be more comfortable with a genuine progressive replacement for Shea in the long term on the right-hand side of centre defence. But I'm being greedy. At the end of the day, you can't really fault the defence from last season too much. But I think we also have to bear in mind these days, if you stand still, you effectively go backwards, and we can't do that.
Steve, defence, happy with the depth?
I don't see Dan Burn as a left back, and I never have. And I think that left back is an area that needs to be strengthened. Matt Targett, he missed most of the season through injury. That was a concern. Trippier, if there is talk of Manquillo going, I know we've got Kraft coming back, but again, long-term injury. It's an injury that he should come back from okay, because he's been out the whole season. He hasn't been pushed. He hasn't been, forced back in after 5, 6, 7 months. They've done it right. Hopefully he comes back and he's strong. But as I said earlier, Steve, it's going to be a long, hard season. And I think we do need strength. And with strengthening comes quality. And I think that's the key. It's whoever we bring in has got to be quality. There's a young lad down at Bristol, Alex Scott, who I think everybody's raving about. And there was talk of him going to West Ham. I'd like to think we're in for a player of his calibre, because that's potentially the long-term future that you're sealing. There's there are bound to be names in the frame coming out of other football clubs, whether it's from Europe or whether it's from the Premier League. We're unsure. I quite like Wan-Bissaka at Man United. I think he's had a raw deal sometimes over the last couple of seasons, and I wouldn't be too averse to having somebody like that coming in. But that's just a name of a player who I think could potentially be available towards the back end of the transfer window. It depends whether we're in panic mode or not. So let's see. But I get what Mitch is saying as well about centre back, a long-term replacement for Shaw. Somebody, I mean, the amount of concussions Shaw had last season, and then came straight back in. And I think he came straight back in because we had no one else that the manager wanted to trust at that particular time, because of the style of football and because of the winning combination that we had between him and Botman. I'm not saying that Lascelles let us down, by the way, because when he did come in, I thought he played reasonably well. And I think it's the measure of the continuity and the quality of the squad that every time he did come in, he was immediately handed the armband again by Trippier. And that says an awful lot for the team spirit. But I think Newcastle United are moving in different realms next season. And Eddie has to be ruthless. And I think if anything, he will be ruthless in terms of who he brings in and more importantly, who leaves.
Sounds as if Liverpool have activated Szoboszlai's release clause, which means we can stop mentioning them on the show now. He goes into the box with James Maddison, and we can lock him away. And as Steve said, it gives us somebody to boo next season. Michael J. George says, ASM here next season. A quick yes or no?
Yes, I've heard nothing so far that suggests he's going anywhere else. I wouldn't be entirely unhappy, but I want the real ASM on a more regular basis, not just once or twice a year.
Yeah, I think he'll still be here. It would be a surprise, I think, if he leaves, but yeah, I think he'll still be here. Mitch, do you think he'll be here or not?
No, I don't think he will.
You think he's going? Okay, Steve?
I think he's good as well. If I was a betting man, then my money would be going on him leaving rather than staying. Don't know where he'll go. That might be the cat that comes out of the bag in terms of perhaps a swap deal with somebody, or as a make weight for something really big, or some sort of deal like that. But I think we're talking about a player who, has loads of potential, loads of ability, has it in spades. He's a wonderful player when he's got the ball at his feet. But it's the end product, and it's where he fits in to the style of player that we've got at the moment. And whether you would consider that he holds on to the ball too long, or the pass doesn't come, or the work rate, I think that's probably been a little bit disingenuous to him, because he is a wonderful footballer. But I just think that he's been here 4 seasons now, and I think that there will be, if anything, the opportunity present itself for him to move on as much as anything else. So I wouldn't be surprised if he left.
Yeah,
I have to say that, having said how much I like him, every time I think about him, I've struggled to get Malcolm McDonald's opinion out the back of my mind.
Well, that's a lovely segue. You must, as if you read me mind, because Sean will probably end up finishing off on this, George. 442 did a piece on the Toon's greatest players. Supermac came in 10th. 5th was Bobby Moncur. 4th was Peter Beardsley. 3rd was Hughie Gallagher. 2nd was Ward Jackie. And 1st was Alan Shearer. Wow. This is a debate and a half, which we've got 10 minutes to finish it. What would you change? I think I'll go first, right? I didn't see Jackie Milburn play, and I didn't see Hughie Gallagher play. And if we're saying greatest Toon players that I've seen, then I would have to say that Peter Beardsley is my number 1. Alan Shearer is my number 2. I didn't see Moncur or Supermac play either. But if that was the only ones that I could, that I could pick out of those particular list, if I had to go for my top 3 out of those names on the screen, I'd have to say Ward Jackie would be third for me. I didn't see him play, but I know how good a player he was. And the person who ultimately came second to Alan Shearer in goal scoring terms is Jackie Milburn. And I know the kind of, and he won cup finals. He won something. So for me, my top 3, George, would be Peter Beardsley, Alan Shearer, and Jackie Milburn. Out of those names on the screen, who would your top 3 be?
My top 3. Well, to
Yes.
begin with, I've got to say, Bobby Bunker wouldn't even be in my top 5, top 10 rather. Supermax should be a lot further up than 10th if you've got Bobby Bunker in there. So that's the bottom end of the thing. Top 3, I would pick exactly the same top 3 as you have. Beardsley, Shearer, Jackie Milburn. And for sentimental reasons, Jackie Milburn would be number 1. And my only feeling for that is that Jackie Milburn was as good a right winger as he was centre forward, and he was scintillating in both positions. So because of his versatility, that's slightly shaded to Jackie, but it's a hard one because Shearer is a great favourite of mine as well. And in terms of goal scoring, whose record did Shearer break? Jackie Milburn. So same top 3, Steve, for me. Beardsley's got to be up there.
Okay, Mitch, what about your top 3? I mean, people are asking us who the other players were, but I don't know. I can only go off what Sean gave us. So
I'd also want to know who wrote the article for 442 because I have an idea.
All right, okay.
Often trait.
Beardsley for Barry as first. Gallagher, Harvey. He's put Harvey, and Harvey's not in there.
Comes back to this comparing players across years.
Yeah.
Do you want to add Bill McCracken in, whose actions as a defender changed the entire offside rule in the Victorian era of the game? Where do you want to go with this? What's an impact?
Colin Beach.
Exactly, and so I think these things are personal to you of who you've seen in your time as a supporter. I think you can't then get involved with, well, he's better than him, because you're going off of, historical reports, sketchy black and white pictures where you maybe got 10 minutes total of somebody in their entire career on film, How do you rate what is an all-time top player? Is it to do with what they've won? Is it to do with things they've done within the game? Is it to do with what they've done for the region or the club or the community? It's always very difficult. That's why I hate things like this, because A, they're so very personal, and B, you end up going round in circles comparing people from different eras of the game. For me, the impact that Kevin Keegan had on me as a player and then a manager, the impact that Peter Beardsley had as a player, of somebody who was able to do things that I'd never seen a footballer do before. Can I say Gaza was one of the best I'd ever seen? Well, as a kid he was, but he was only with me really as a kid. His career happened after he left us, to be fair. Maybe I'm just turning into a grumpy old fart, and I just don't want to engage with stuff like that. But I find it very, very difficult. I have so many players that I can say, yes, they made a difference to me from what I saw, even down to, Roy Aitken, who I came to know as a friend in later years, and what a difference he made to me as a player. I've treated all sorts of people out here in Dubai, and the only one I ever got struck over was Roy Aitken, for God's sake.
Tom Hancock wrote the piece.
Right. Okay, that's not who I thought it was. So that's
I'll tell you who the top 10 was then. You said Malcolm at 10. Number 9 was Gaza, right? Number 8. Who was number 8?
Shea Given. Is it Rob or Lee? Rob Lee.
Rob Lee. Number 7, Shea Given. Number 6, Keegan. Number 5, Moncur. Number 4, Beardsley. Number 3, Gallagher. Number 2, Jackie. And number 1, Allen. That was the top 10. Now, If you want my opinion, my old man used to always say that he thought Jimmy Schooler was a far better footballer than Bobby Moncur. I never saw Jimmy Schooler play, but I'll go with what my old man said. So that's eliminated Bobby, I'm afraid. He also, believe it or not, George, my dad used to say that he thought Len White was a better footballer than Jackie was. Now, whether that's because my dad saw Len White play more as a centre forward than he saw Jackie Milburn play as a centre forward, I'm not too sure. Or whether he just preferred the barnstorming Len White as a centre forward. And my dad was at the 55 Cup final as well. So that puts a question mark over them. Because again, I'd go, like Mitch does, I'll go very much in players that I haven't seen. I'll go with what my dad thinks. For me, Peter should be further up. I also think that Alan number one because he has to be because he's a top goal scorer. And it was in my era, but it would be a flypaper between the two of them in terms of the quality of Beardsley, what he brought to the game, what he brought in terms of bringing other players into the game, the way that he played the game. I just think he was probably the best player that we've had. So this is where it becomes difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you go with Alan, or can you have joint number one and have nobody at number two and then stick somebody at number three? It's a hard one. It's a hard one. And again, as Mitch said, when you're going across ages and across eras, it makes it even really harder to sort of pigeonhole players or slot players into a top 10 all-time list. There are players, even with Alan, there are youngsters now who never saw Alan play. Lads going to match, lads in their 20s who, probably never saw Alan at St. James's Park. And it's hard for us to get our heads around that as well, So that's why a lot of youngsters, as you see on TV, on the internet, and they talk about best players, favourite players that were disappointed left, and they go, goodbye. Because he scored some free kicks and he was a good footballer.
We did Dream Team, didn't we, on here, where we asked people their teams. I think the best one we did was Holly Blades and George Mitchell, where we had two completely opposite ends of the spectrum. And wow, you got what a comparison that is. If anybody watches a Dream Team, George Mitchell and Holly Blades, the oldest and youngest member of the panels. It was fantastic watch. And that backs up what you're saying, Steve.
Yeah, exactly. I would probably put Peter ahead of Alan then. I would probably go Peter first, Alan second. And as I say, on another day, I'd go the other way. Just depends. There were other players that were around. My favourite was Jinky Jim. Yeah, but I couldn't turn around and say that he was the top 10 players of Newcastle United. He'd be one of my top 10 favourites, but not necessarily the top 10 players. So again, it makes it really difficult, I
think I've said to you lads before that one of the reasons I so tied up on Jackie Milburn is that it's my belief that Jackie Milburn was one of the players that changed footballers from just being footballers to being athletes. And I'm quite serious about that. I saw him doing in training what none of the other members of Newcastle United did. And he got most of that from the fact he was a professional sprinter. And he was using the training methods that the out-of-hold sprinters were using. He used weights, where George Hanna and people like that wouldn't have gone near a bloody gymnasium for weights. That they gone around the back of the gym to have a wood bane rather than use the weights. So, and I think Jackie, for me, turned footballers into more than footballers. He turned them into athletes. And that was part of his greatness, in my opinion. But like you lads, it's difficult to split the top ones.
course, great question that, and it's definitely one you could end up going on and on. And you could do a 2-hour show on that alone. It's absolutely fantastic. The arguments, the whys and wherefores. But great question. There's been some great questions tonight, and sometimes we like to do that. Just rely on the chat, to lead the narrative, if you like. It's great, especially in the summer, because we can talk about anything. There's not as much pressure on with games, etc. Okay, as we do have a couple of other things to do. If you don't like the music, block your ears. If you like it, turn your TV up. The day I met, we're asking you to send in photographs of you meeting someone from Newcastle United, either past or present. And we've got this, actually, Players Lounge at Tranmere Rovers with 2 Coronation Street stars. We had a fantastic day. And it's the lads from Komatsu, sent in by me mate, Fitzy, from the Felon. But they were Newcastle fans in that infamous Tranmere game, the 6-6 game, I think. And they met a couple of Coronation Street actors. So thanks for sending that in. Something a bit different, not Newcastle United players or staff, but Newcastle United fans. So thank you for sending that in. If you've met anyone famous, ping the photograph over to me or the lads, and we will endeavour to get you on the show. And Julie is conspicuous by her absence, but we never forget Julie's favourite part of the show. And it's this one. Charlie Roberts reading my lovely article that was put out by the Shields Gazette. Steve Wraith tastes canned success, his return to acting pays off. And Charlie Roberts put, Steve writing this piece about himself. And a contented face. I didn't block Charlie for that because it's all about opinions. But yeah, it just gave us the opportunity to highlight somebody and, of course, run the music. Yeah, classic. Big thanks to everybody. That bloody music, says Geordie Tune for Life. What 3 words, says Benny? Do not do that. Not when his dad's there. Mark Ritchie says, great show tonight, lads. Who needs keeps chomping on his bait in front of his candlesticks? Thank you, Mark. A few other mentions of players. I love Frank Clark and Jimmy Smith, said Ian Edgar. Peter Beardsley says Mark Byers was world class. My favourite ever to wear the shirt in a lifetime. Evening, Nick. We haven't seen you for a while. Hope you're well. And lots of positivities about players. Sean says great show and enjoy the last few days of your holidays. George.
Thank you.
Which is nice. And safe travels back, George. I bet you don't want to come home, to be fair. But,
thanks for all the good wishes. It's been great to be with the 2 most important people in my life, my granddaughter and my son. So I've really enjoyed it.
Great stuff. Great show. Don't forget, if you want your Newcastle United news, go to Newcastle World, scan and sign up for their free NUFC newsletters at this QR code. Have a great weekend. I am back tomorrow morning, 10 o'clock in the morning with Ross Gregory. And then I'm going to try and fit in a professional show with Mitch and Stu on Sunday. Time to be confirmed. Have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy the last day with your dad, Mitch. Take care, mate. Love you, mate.
Cheers, everyone.
Love you, lads.